Hi, and welcome back to Purple Collar Life. In today's video, we're talking about things to look for, 5 things to consider if you're looking for a jet ski. And the inspiration for this video is the weather. It is hot here. We're talking over 90 degrees Fahrenheit. For me, that's way too hot. I like it in the 70s. I like it in the high 50s, low 60s at night. Easy to sleep. But right now in Northwest Pennsylvania, we're in a heat wave, which means we're gonna spend some time on the water, on the boats. So I thought, good opportunity to talk to you about what things to look for if you're like me and you want to spend time on the water and you're looking at a jet ski. I'll be using our SeaDoo as an example as we talk about PWC's, personal watercrafts, or as a lot of people call them, jet skis. This is a 2006 SeaDoo GTX 4-Tech, which means a couple things, and we'll talk through that as we go. But just for a frame of reference, we picked this up used with about 150 hours on it for around $5,000 a couple years ago, and that included the trailer. So let's talk about what you're looking for if you're looking for a used PWC on the market. And the first thing everyone will say is hours. And I think that's wrong. Let me tell you why. Now, if you start looking up online, you'll probably find all kinds of information out there about finding hours on a used jet ski. Some people will say that a jet ski will only last about 300 hours total in its life. So then you'll start shopping, you'll see jet skis with 250 hours or even 300 hours and think this is no good. I disagree with that. And the reason is, it really depends on what you see with the rest of the stuff we're gonna talk about. If you see a machine that's overall condition is pretty well beat up and it's got 300 hours on it, then yes, I would worry. If you see a machine that's in about this condition and it's got close to 300 hours on it, I would worry a little bit less. If you're looking at a machine that has a supercharger and an air cooler and it has 300 hours, I would worry. If you're looking at a machine that doesn't have those things and has 300 hours, I probably wouldn't worry as much. We got our new registration stickers. This new sticker I'm putting on doesn't expire until December 31st, 2025. I put my notes on the back of the envelope that the new registration stickers came in. Here in Pennsylvania, a couple rules about PWCs. They do have to be registered. They have to have the hull number on them, registration number. That number has to match your sticker. The sticker will have a year on it. It'll say if it's a powered vessel, which this is. And in Pennsylvania, in order to drive a PWC, you have to be a licensed operator. There is a boater safety course that you have to take in order to be licensed to drive one of these, again, here in Pennsylvania. So the rules are going to vary depending on where you live or where you're boating, so make sure you follow the rules for the area you're in and that you're well versed in the operation and upkeep of one of these machines before you take them out on the water. The first thing I recommend you look at when you're looking at a jet ski is the hull of the machine, and I'm talking about this underneath part and the top. So yes, typically the hull is just referred to as the part that's in the water. I'm talking about the overall condition of all the fiberglass on the machine, but specifically looking at the hull. So if you're looking at this to buy it, I would recommend you get underneath it. You're checking down here at the very V bottom of the hull to see if it's all scuffed up, see if it's cracked, see if it's missing chips, see if it has a hole in it. You'll be amazed when you start looking at personal watercrafts. Some people really beat these things. They don't take any care of them at all, so you'll see a lot of damaged hulls. A lot of people will beach these right up on top of the rocks or the sand. That in no time at all scuffs up the bottom and wears through that fiberglass. Once you've worn through the gel coat and the fiberglass, it starts to make this hull not as solid. It also starts to make it not plane as well on the water, and it gives more potential for leaks inside the hull. So this one's in really good shape. The guy before us, yes, he left it on the water a lot, which is why you see some discoloration on the side where it was sitting in the water for so long. That is permanent. We've tried to clean that off several times. It looks better now than it did. But that discoloration right about there, that's never gonna fully come off. When you're looking at the hull, you wanna look all the way back. On this SeaDoo, there are some of these things on the back that are extra flotation and part of the steering system. So you'd want to make sure those things are also in good working order. I've looked at some of the jet skis before where these things are entirely ripped off and gone, and the people are still selling them that way. I would lean away from one like that. Or these steering helpers are also gone. I'd lean away from one like that. They're not going to steer right in slow speed conditions. That's what these are for. These actually tuck up out of the way when you're moving at full speed, but when you're moving slow speed towards the dock, these help you steer. Let me show you what I mean. See how as you turn the handlebars, it actually moves those. So as you're moving at a slow speed and the jet isn't sending out as much water, it's harder to navigate, it's harder to maneuver, but these help you steer by deflecting the water. They're like little rudders on the back of the boat. Here you can see some more of that staining. Like I said, that's permanent on the side now. That won't come off. So yes, it makes it not look as nice, but as far as the hull structural integrity, it doesn't affect the structural integrity. You can see there is a nice scratch right here. Someone did scuff against something. That is a cut all the way through the sticker, the SeaDoo sticker on the side of the jet ski, but it's not into the fiberglass of the jet ski to where you'd be worried about that scuff in the boat. I talked in point number 1 about looking at hours. I forgot to mention this had about 150 hours on it when we bought it. And that actually worried me a little bit because a 2006 with only 150 hours meant that it wasn't used very much. Thankfully, I knew the owner of this. He actually works at the boat store where I bought most of my boats, and this was his personal machine. So with all those other boats to use, he didn't use this a whole lot, but he did make sure it was well taken care of. The other thing you consider is seat condition. This seat does have a small hole in it. I'll show it to you. But other than that, the back seat, there are no holes. This machine did have a cover on it the entire time it was in the water, other than when it was being ridden. So that helped keep everything in nice shape. The front seat here does have this one little hole, and that will continue to get worse over time. So that's something that we probably should get a little, one of those sticky patches and put over top of. It'll keep the water from coming in here and keep that crack from getting bigger. But overall, this seat's in really nice shape. As you look at used jet skis, you'll see there are a lot of them that don't have the vinyl cover at all. They're just foam, especially if they're nearing 20 years old. The next thing we're going to talk about here is the engine, and there are a couple things to consider when it comes to the engine of a personal watercraft. First of all, this is a 4-stroke engine, which means it takes regular gasoline, not an oil and gas mix, and it doesn't run like a 2-stroke engine where it's always spitting that smoke out. Can typically be more difficult to start. The 4Tech 4-stroke engine usually is quieter, smoother, and in my mind, more reliable for the long term. You can see this one still in really nice shape. The cover's still on it. You'll find somewhere this cover is missing. This cover's still on. You can check the engine oil to make sure it's still good and at the right levels. This engine uses a closed loop cooling system, which is my preference. It means it's not using the lake water to circulate through the engine. It actually has a separate cooling system, and you can see it does use engine coolant. And there's a fill bottle for the coolant. You want to make sure you check that fill level. The other thing you can see in the engine compartment, if you take a look down in, is if there's oil or anything laying on the bottom that would worry you that the engine has an oil leak. You can also see in ours, there's the battery. Our battery is pretty new. Those batteries are not cheap. I believe that one was $260. We just got it last year. Some other stuff you want to notice if you're looking down in here is if there's any floating foam. In other words, any foam that should be pressed down in the edges, but it's chipped or moving around or floating, that's a bad sign. Also, if you see rust in the engine compartment, that's typically a bad sign that there's been water in an area it shouldn't be. If you see a bunch of water in there, that's not a good sign either. These, especially this particular jet ski, and I believe most of the other ones like it, automatically evacuate the water while you're riding. And there's also drain plugs at the back, so after every use you should drain the water. When you take your boat out for a water test, which I always recommend you do, you're going to want to test it and then take a look underneath the seat to see how much water is accumulating in here. A little bit of water is okay, a lot of water is a problem. Another thing you want to think about when you're looking at the engine is the engine size. I mentioned before, supercharged engines are amazing to ride. They are fast, super quick acceleration and a lot of fun, but they also require a lot more maintenance. Every 50 to 100 hours, you have to rebuild that supercharger. That's a pretty expensive thing, and in my mind, not worth the headache of having 300 horsepower. This particular jet ski has 155 horsepower, naturally aspirated, no supercharger, no intercooler. So while it's not as fast on the acceleration, it's still plenty of fun for us, for 2 or 3 people to go out riding. And yes, we have towed tubes, wakeboards, and water skiers behind this jet ski with 155 horsepower. Another thing you want to look at when you're considering the engine is the gauges. So you want to go ahead and put the key in, watch the gauges spool up, make sure there's no check engine light, any issues on the gauges. This is just a good check to see that according to the computer system, everything's functioning properly. Again, that's a key portion of a water test. When you're in the water and you're driving it around, you're watching that temperature gauge or light, you're watching the battery gauge or light. That lets you know it's charging properly, it's maintaining the proper temperature, it's keeping the oil pressure right. Those gauges are really helpful in determining the health of the engine and a lot of the electrical system. So let's review those first 3 so far. One was the hours, which I said can be tricky. Yes, you do want to know approximately how many hours are on the machine. If you're looking at one that has like 1,000 hours and they still want $6,000 for it, that's probably too much for what you're getting. Just my personal opinion, always do your own research and make your own decisions. But in my mind, 1,000 hours for $6,000 is too much money. Number 2 was the hull condition, which we said includes the bottom, obviously, the whole way down the V of the hull, the whole way to the back of the hull. You're looking for cracks and damage, looking for someone not taking care of a machine, but you're also looking at the overall condition of the fiberglass all the way up onto the sides, the front of the machine. Have they run it into something when they're loading the jet ski onto the trailer? Had they constantly hit it and damaged the front end where you're hooking it? Those are all things to consider when you're looking at the hull and the overall condition of the machine you're looking at. Number 3 was the engine. We talked about looking for oil leaks, checking that oil, making sure it sounds right when you start it up and run it. Those are all things that are important. Considering the engine size, how many horsepower do you need to do what you're doing, considering whether you want 2-stroke or 4-stroke engine. Another thing you do want to consider is the size of the machine. This particular SeaDoo GTX 4Tech is a 3-seater machine. It's about 11 feet long. At the time, it was just about the biggest personal watercraft you could buy. Now they make them much wider and much longer. So you want to know the size of the machine you're looking for. We wanted to be able to sit 3 people. We wanted it to be big enough to be stable on the water. Yes, we want to zip around on a jet ski like a jet ski should, but we also want to be stable going across wake. We want to be stable if we're towing a wakeboarder or a water skier or a tuber. So those are all things you can do. You have to have, at least in Pennsylvania, the capability to haul 3 people in order to have someone behind the boat on a tube or wakeboard or skis. So you'd have 1 driver, 1 spotter, and room on the machine for the person that's in the water. So that's why you have to have a 3-seat machine to have somebody in the water, because when the person's not on the skis, there's got to be room for them on the boat. Now, if you're looking for a machine that you can submarine down under the water pretty easily, do spins on a dime, you might be looking for a 1-person or a 2-person machine with about the same horsepower, or even some of those old 2-stroke machines have about 80 horsepower, but they can do some amazing tricks. For us, we wanted a little bit larger body in the water for more stability and to be able to do those water sports behind us. That was more important to us than being able to do the tricks and jumps on the machine in the water. And the last thing, number 5, is a trailer. So if you're like us and you don't live on lakefront property, you're gonna have to haul this machine to and from the bodies of water we're using them in. So we take this to rivers, we take it to lakes, we take this to a number of places, and it's good to have the trailer to haul it on. You want to consider that in the price when you're looking at a machine. Trailers are not free, they are a separate item. So if you're paying $5,000 for a machine like this, you have to consider that you're getting not only the machine, but the trailer that has somewhere between a $300 and an $800 value, depending on how old it is, what condition it's in, how long it is, and whether it's a 1-ski or a 2-ski trailer. 1-ski trailers, lightweight, easy to move around. I can lift and move this thing around anywhere I need it to go, easy to hook up to the back of a vehicle. I can pull it through gravel easily just by hand. This is actually easier to move around than my log splitter, and my log splitter is pretty easy to move around. Earlier in the video I mentioned doing a water test, and that would be a bonus number 6 here, but the water test is actually necessary to see the first 5 points I already mentioned. So in the water test, you're going to check for how this thing floats on the water, steering operation, forward, neutral, and reverse operation. On these SeaDoo GTX machines, the handle's right there for operation, and I actually have a series coming out about how to load your jet ski on the trailer, how to get it off the trailer, how to start it and operate it. So those videos will be coming out shortly. While we're in this hot spell, I thought we might as well take this thing out in the water, make some videos about owning a jet ski. So if you're looking for that, make sure you click that subscribe button, hit the like button below, leave those comments. But the water test is key to being able to make sure this machine runs right and is the machine you're looking for that will make you happy summer after summer after summer. Now, this was not an all-inclusive list. There's a lot of other things you should consider. You could do a boat check to make sure that the boat's never been wrecked or totaled or rebuilt. There's those kind of things, just like a Carfax for boats. You also want to know a little about the person you're buying from. Is this a reliable person that would be trustworthy and honest with you about what you're buying? You want to make sure that the keys are included. There should usually be a running key and a learning key. So you want to have both of those keys for the machine if possible. If they've got the owner's manual, that's good. If they've got maintenance records, that's even better. So those are all things to look at in addition to the 5 that I mentioned. But I think the 5 will at least get you narrowing down your search so you're finding a machine that's right for you. A SeaDoo, a jet ski, Waverunner, they're all pretty much similar. I will mention on the hull, when you're looking at the hull of a Waverunner is a very special material. It glides across the water really well, but it's very difficult to fix. So if you're looking at Waverunner and you're seeing like the fiberglass substrate underneath, that is very expensive to repair, and I would lean away from that machine. Just my 2 cents. Another good tip is to watch lots of videos using or reviewing these jet skis. Get on the forums, do searches about issues with the model and make and year you're looking at. That can also help you make an informed decision. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Like I said, there will be more videos about how to launch a PWC. I've already made a video last fall about how to winterize it that I think was really helpful. I found a new and easier way. I'll put a link to that video up above. But if you're looking at a jet ski, hopefully this video helped you out in your search to find a used jet ski for a reasonable price that's in good condition that will last you for summer fun. Thanks for watching. Leave those comments down below, things I may have forgotten to say in this video. And then hopefully we'll see you on the next one where we talk about launching your new jet ski or used. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again the next time. much everything was this easy to move around.